Hello. Uh, uh-oh, that is not what I wanted to happen. Today I'm going to talk to you about um, protein metabolism, which involves catabolism, the breakdown of protein into amino acids and the pathways that those amino acids can take, or protein anabolism or amino acid anabolism, taking those amino acids and turning them into other larger molecules. So it all starts with the protein that we eat. Our dietary protein. So we take in our dietary protein and we break that protein down into the individual amino acids. So we can call this an amino acid pool. And in our cells and in our blood at any given time, there are lots of free floating amino acids. And we call that our amino acid pool. Now, these amino acids can be built back up to turn into tissues, proteins. The amino group can be stripped from them, leaving behind the carbons to take other pathways, and that results in waste, which can either be excreted through urine, or the amino groups can form other molecules. Amino acids can form non-protein nitrogen compounds. They can enter the citric acid cycle and provide ATP. They can be used in gluconeogenesis to produce glucose, and they can also be turned into fatty acid synthesis or lipogenesis. So I'm just going to introduce this with just a few general points, and then we're going to look at a picture that I drew. So every single amino acid has the same structure. We have carboxylic acid group, we have the amino group, we have a hydrogen, and then we have that R group, that side chain. So every single amino acid has its own pathway, but there is a process that's the same for each, and that's the removal of this amino group. And this nitrogen can be used in the synthesis of new nitrogen compounds, and it can also get passed into our urea cycle. It can get turned into urea. This remnant that's left has 2 carbons in it, which is pretty handy because a lot of the steps in our pathway for catabolism for energy uses involves 2 carbons. And we can also make fatty acids by putting together 2 carbons at a time. There's something magical kind of about that 2 carbon thing. So the carbon atoms that are left can be incorporated into the citric acid cycle or turned into fatty acids. Now, this is just some examples of nitrogen-containing molecules that can come from amino acids. You can see the list is extensive. Nitric oxide hormones, some neurotransmitters are NAD plus and NADT plus. These are some of our high energy carriers. The heme in our red blood cells, creatine phosphate, purine, and pyrimidine bases for nucleic acids. Or it can get turned into the nitrogen that is incorporated into the urea that we excrete through the urine that leaves our body. I won't make you remember this. I just want you to remember that the nitrogen that gets stripped off of the amino acid has a lot of different possibilities for where it ends up, including waste. So this just summarizes the pathways. One thing that you'll notice is the same in all of my other presentations is this bottom part. In fact, it's all part of the same drawing. We get energy primarily through the citric acid cycle and electron transport, coupled with oxidative phosphorylation to produce ATP. So let's start here with proteins. Our proteins get broken down into amino acids. These amino acids can be used to build new proteins, and they can be used to build many other molecules. So the amino acids can either, they can enter the citric acid cycle in one of two places. It can enter as pyruvate, and at this point, it could be used for gluconeogenesis if there is a need in the body for more glucose, or it can enter into the acetyl-CoA start of the citric acid cycle to ultimately get the ATP. If it does make glucose, when we have glucose, glucose can always get turned into glycogen. The glycogen can always get turned back into glucose. So these are always steps that are available. So if, once again, if our body is low on glucose, we have a way to make it from proteins and also from lipids. The amino acids, depending on what kind it is, can enter the citric acid cycle here. It can be converted to pyruvate, or it can just get turned right into acetyl-CoA. When it gets turned into acetyl-CoA, it enters the citric acid cycle to make energy. One thing that's not on here is if we have excess acetyl-CoA under situations of extreme starvation, we can get that buildup of acetyl-CoA, and it can get turned into ketone bodies under extreme starvation. One thing that does happen here is that the amines are released and converted to urea and excreted through the urine as waste. So these are the amines that are not used to make other molecules. So there are 20 different amino acids. So obviously the metabolism of protein can get very, very complicated. This is just serving as a simple overview to show you that proteins can make glucose through gluconeogenesis. They can also, if we get an abundance of acetyl-CoA, can make fatty acids through lipogenesis. And those fatty acids can combine with glycerol to produce those triglycerides, which get stored as adipose. So there are all of these different pathways that the amino acids and protein can end up taking. So thanks for watching.